This eduroam how-to guide explains installing NPS and shows checking you have everything, certificate, enabling TLS 1.2 on Windows 2012, and installing NPS.
Good afternoon, and this is again a session to talk about the prerequisites for NPS, certainly for setting up NPS. Now, as you will probably notice here, I have just logged into my server. I have also logged into the eduroam support server because we're going to set up our NPS server today. And for this, you will need the shared secrets that have been generated for you. Now, you'll notice that these secrets are separate and they are different for every server. And that's because that is the most secure option at this point. So your prerequisites, make sure that you have a server registered or at least generated on the support server. Then the other thing that you have to check when you start this is that you have a certificate in your certificate store. Now, to get to this, I'm just quickly going to close this, is to go to the start menu, go to search, type in MMC and start it up. Go to File, Add Remove Snap-in, click on Certificates, choose the computer account because the NPS server will run as a service and as such it will use the computer account to look for the certificates it's meant to use. So you click on Finish, you click on OK, and you then go into Certificates and you look under Personal Certificates for a certificate that you can use. Now, in order to use a certificate, check that the intended purposes say server authentication. If you do not have one of those, you should be going back to one of our webinars about the issuance of a certificate. Also, you have to check that there is a little key, as you can see by my cursor. There's a little key next to the certificate. That means that there is a private key that is associated with this certificate, and as such, the NPS server can use that. Without such a key, it will just generate an error. It will simply complain about an EAP failure, and you don't get any further than that. So you have this, and we will also need to check that things like the newest version of EAP TLS is enabled. Now, for the servers on Windows 2012 and possibly Windows 2016, this is more an issue. 2019 should most certainly be enabled for TLS 1.2. 1.2 is the most current version. There's a newer version called 1.3 out there that is now being used for browsers. But the EAP protocol, or rather more specifically the PEEP protocol that Microsoft likes to use, is basically standardized on TLS 1.0, and TLS 1.0 is obsolete. It is truly obsolete, and you should make sure that your server speaks TLS 1.2. So in order to do this, we search for something called regedit. We right-click on that. We click Run as Administrator. Then we go to the HKey local machine. We go to System. We go to Current Control Set. We go to Services. We go to something called RASMan. You'll notice that there's a lot of services running here. And you just search for one called RASMan. And there is RASMan for you. Then in RASMan, we click on PPP, which is point-to-point protocol, and we click on EAP. And in EAP, you'll find that there is 13, that is PEEP. And in here, we should be looking for something called TLS version. And you can see that there's no TLS version in here at the moment. So what we do is we right-click, we create a dword value, and we type in TLS version. in exactly that format. So capital T, lowercase l, lowercase s, capital V, so the old camel case. Then we need to set the values here. And this is where it becomes a little bit more interesting. TLS version 1.0 would be a value of C0, but we don't want to use TLS 1.0. We want something called TLS 1.2, so we set C00. And that is the extent of that. So that should now enable TLS 1.2 for us. Then with this, we can now go and install NPS. And we do this by clicking on the server manager. We wait for it to load. And we can see here that there's no NPS installed because there's no NPS item here. So we go to manage, we go to add roles and features, we click on next, we click on next a second time, we choose the local server, and then in the roles we have here, we look for the network policy and access services role. That pops up a new wizard. We click on add features, we click on next. We do not want to install any further features, so we simply click next. We click next a third time, a fourth time, and install. And in doing this, it now installs the NPS server. And now we twiddle our thumbs and wait. This can take a little longer. It can be very quick. It depends all on your server itself. It is certainly recommended that you speed up your server by giving it a good amount of resource, especially if you are a busy site like a university or a college with a large population or in the center of a university town. Make sure your server has enough resources, so enough memory, enough disk space, and enough network. And with this, now that it is finished, we click on close, and we now see something called NAP, and that is your NPS server option. Now to get to NPS, you can right click there, and you choose Network Policy Server. And it will start the NPS interface for you. And there we are. NPS is now installed, and it is now ready to be configured. And that concludes that.